Just wanted to speak to all of you for a moment. I made an announcement at the end of the Dangerous Internet Predators video that I uploaded last week, asking everyone if they would like to hear women's fictional stories. If I started uploading fictional stories, I would not call them creepypastas, but I would probably get them from No Sleep. But they would be with permission. Everything on here that I've uploaded to date, I have permission to have used, and everything is true. Even the paranormal stories, even if they seem outlandish, believe me, they're all true. So I just need to know whether or not you would watch fictional stories. 2 subscribers have responded, and they both said no. They are absolutely not interested in it. They think it would detract from the women's true crime stories that I've been uploading up to now. So please leave a comment below. After I receive at least 10 responses, that means 8 more than I've already received, I'm going to make a decision. If the consensus is yes, I'll probably start uploading videos twice a week, starting at the end of October. But if it's no, I probably can't, because there just isn't enough material out there for me to do 2 true stories a week. Now, if there's something other than Creepy Encounters and Let's Not Meet that you're aware of that I have missed, let me know. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time and your loyalty. I appreciate all your kind comments over the last year. And of course, stay safe. Number 1. I'm 24 now. This happened when I was 17 and a senior in high school. I've always been a somewhat chunky girl, and in my Catholic school uniform, I figured I was generally invisible to most people as I walked to the public bus to go home. However, this may have made me more of a target that day. I walked to the stop, and 2 other people were there, a guy probably in his late 20s, and a woman maybe in her 50s, but certainly no older than my mother. The guy started chatting me up when he saw my school uniform, and while I tried to be polite, I felt a touch creeped out. After all, why was an older guy interested in chatting with someone who was clearly in high school? My adrenaline shot up when the woman, in a half-joking way, said, "Hey man, leave the kid alone. You're bugging her." The guy whirled around and yells at her,
"Was I talking to you? No, I was talking to the young lady."
Mind you, he didn't say another word to me. He just stormed off, muttering under his breath. At this point, the woman asked if I'd like to sit with her, and I nodded, still feeling a bit shaky. She introduced herself, saying she had meant to take the previous bus, but had missed it. However, she was glad that she'd ended up being there for me, because according to her, the guy had walked up 10 minutes before I'd gotten there and had never said a single thing to her. He'd really brightened up when I walked by. When the bus came, we sat together and chatted for a while, and she made sure I got safely off the bus at my stop. Number 2. About 3 years ago, I lived in Chile as a missionary for my church. I am a blonde, white U.S. American woman, and I was 20 at the time. I lived in a big city, and much of my time was spent walking with my missionary companion, who at the time was a Mexican girl, and speaking to locals on the streets and in their homes. This particular day, it was about to rain, and we were heading home for lunch. It was a busy street, but there were no people around because it was going to rain. We were walking on a sidewalk about 10 feet away from the street. I was used to getting harassed by men on the street in Chile. Because of my skin and hair color, I got a lot of whistles, jeers, etc. I'm not saying I'm beautiful. I'm just saying that many times the construction workers or just drunk men on the street would whistle at women, and especially a blonde foreign girl. It just is partly their culture and partly their sick satisfaction at getting a rise out of me. I really never reacted, just because I knew that it wouldn't do any good, and I didn't speak Spanish very well at the time. This time, though, a white creeper van pulled up next to us, and the man inside started yelling things at us. I truly had no idea what he was saying, and it didn't sound like the normal things men said to us. My companion, however, did understand. She told me to walk faster, and we did. A few seconds later, the guy jumped out of the van and started yelling more things as he walked closer to us. We walked faster, and my companion just whispered to me to not listen and look forward. I did not understand what he said at all because he spoke Spanish so quickly and had a strange accent, and also my lack of understanding. I guess I'm lucky, and I feel bad she had to hear it all. Then he yelled very loudly,
"Hey!"
and I turned my head slightly to see him jacking off as he followed us. He was a disgusting fat man. He was saying,
"Preciosas,"
slowly as he followed us. In English, that is basically gorgeous girls. I was so creeped out, and my heart was racing so fast. I had never felt so violated and scared. My companion put her arm around me and repeated "shh" in my ear to calm me down. We ended up just running down the street back home without looking back. I loved my time in Chile and the Chilean people. This was just the worst of many experiences I had while there. I do know this is not specific to Chile or the Chilean men in general, and of course, I know most are wonderful people. I now live with my husband in Mexico, and I love living abroad. Number 3. I am a female, currently 23, 5'11", and was probably 16 at the time of my encounter. I grew up in a rural countryside in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas in California with my parents and 7 older siblings. My parents were very religious, and my father was a sheriff in the capital city of California, so stranger danger was ingrained in my mind from a very young age. My father would constantly tell me the horrible things he witnessed people do to each other and give me books written by his colleagues about murders and whatnot. So my story takes place at my family home. First, some necessary background about the layout of my house. My father built our house with his bare hands, a beautiful 3-story Victorian-style house on 2 acres with a large cement patio and stairs coming down from the front and winding all the way around to the gravel driveway on the side, where we had a large metal gate with a bungee cord for a latch and an 8-foot-high wire fence around the whole property. Beware of dog signs posted on the gate, and because of all the men in the family are hobbyist mechanics, this is important. We had about 12 vehicles in our yard at this point. Not even kidding. It is also important to note that I was alone at the house with my parents this day. My other sister was gone, and all the other siblings had moved out at this point. So in the morning I woke up and put a swimsuit on to go sunbathe in the front yard, as I religiously did every morning after spring came and winter had retreated. I was laying in the front yard, scantily clad, when both my parents walked by me, and my dad said,
"You shouldn't lay out there like that. One of these days someone's going to try to take you from me."
I laughed and told him he was crazy. No one in their right mind would try anything, and he and my mom proceeded to open the gate and leave in the car they had parked in front of it. I flipped over onto my stomach and proceeded to doze off for a minute until I heard a car approaching at a rather fast speed, looked up, and saw a small 4-door sedan stopped at the end of my parents' road for a good 15 seconds and then proceed to turn left at the stop sign rather than right towards the main highway. I thought this was strange, but our neighborhood makes a loop with 3 others, so I shrugged it off as someone lost. I start to doze off again. And as I'm laying there with my eyes closed, I could hear the slow, steady crunching of gravel, the sound a car makes when they move extremely slow, cautiously, almost as though they would prefer to go unnoticed. I look over and see the same car creeping back up the road towards my house, approaching the stop sign they had just turned left at. But the minute I heard the crunching gravel and saw that it was the same car, I immediately felt a knot in my throat. I knew they were looking at me and nothing else. I knew they were hoping I didn't see them approaching. My heart started pounding, trying to escape my chest, and I watched as they came up to my parents' driveway and passed it, only to park on the lawn next to the road, directly in front of me, with a perfect view of my body sunbathing. Their windows were so tinted I couldn't see anyone behind the wheel. I felt sick to my stomach, and even though I couldn't see who was in the car, I could feel their eyes burning my whole body more than the sun ever could. I was literally paralyzed with fear. I knew I was home alone, and what were the chances that not 10 minutes before my parents had warned me of creeps just like this? It seemed surreal. I laid there for at least 10 minutes, if not longer, until I gained the courage to bolt up on my feet and sprint as fast as I could around the back of the house, through the back door and into the kitchen. I grabbed the largest kitchen knife I could find and the landline phone and peeked through the bay window curtain facing the street. He was still there, waiting, watching for something, probably me. I just watched and clutched the phone, waiting for him to make an advancement before I declared this an emergency and called 911. And then he started his car. I was almost relieved as he started to back it up, and right as I thought he was leaving, he pulled into my driveway and parked. I could see his silhouette through his front window. I watched as he got out of the car and approached my gate. He was a normal-looking man, probably 30, with a beer belly and dark brown hair. I started screaming into the palm of my hands. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. In broad daylight, in a decently populated neighborhood, this man was scoping out the situation, probably trying to figure out how easy it was to get in, and maybe wondering if others were home. He stared at the bungee cord for what felt like an eternity, reached out and kind of fiddled with it. I couldn't believe he would even consider this with how many cars were parked at my house, and for that reason, it made it feel that much more dangerous. Like he didn't care if I was home alone or not. He could still have his way. And as the boiling hot tears started streaming down my cheeks, he turned around, got back in his car, and left. Back to God knows where that man came from. He decided it wasn't worth it. I collapsed on the floor crying and tried calling my mom over and over again with no answer. Not a minute later, and my parents walked through the door, frantically asking me what was wrong as I babbled to them about the man that had just pulled up and stared at me the whole time they were gone. For once in my life, I was so relieved that my parents came back so quickly from a trip out of the house. The first thing I said to them was, "Did you hire that man to scare me into never sunbathing outside again?" I felt the timing was too perfect, too orchestrated. The look on my mom's face assured me that they would never have done such a thing to me. Needless to say, I never sunbathed in the front yard like that again, and for weeks after this happened, we would drive around the neighborhood looking for that 4-door sedan to report it to the police, but I never saw it again. I can hardly express the all-knowing fear I felt in the moment. It's what all L&M stories share in common. It's something we have wired deep in the primal subconscious depths of our brains, and it is not something we as humans should ever ignore. If you feel like something is very wrong, it probably is. Because I know in my heart this was not just a lost visitor of the neighborhood or a religious missionary knocking on our doors. It was a man staring at an underage girl and wondering how to gain entry to her home and do whatever it is he felt compelled to do. I can only assume. All I can say to the man who seriously contemplated doing something sinister to me that morning, despite the time of day and amount of cars in front of my house, please don't ever come back. Because since then, I have learned how to use a gun, and I will show no mercy on your soul. I can only hope I'm the only girl you ever made feel that kind of fear, but chances are, I'm not. Creepy Mina here of the Worst Nightmare channel. Quick, go back to 6 seconds if you skipped over it and listen to the message I left. Sorry it's a little on the long side. Comment below, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, share and follow me on Twitter, and please stay safe.